anything that you want to do is possible. Anything. And if you just take the time to do all the things that you said, have the right people in your life, have the right direction, have the navigator, and do the little things and go and lean into those working edges. And as you believe me, I had plenty of hurdles during that time that I had to work through, including literally running through some pain and some other stuff and go, no, you know what? And my mantra during that was, my body is willing, it's my mind that's weak. My body is willing, it's my mind that's weak. And just kept going. And anybody can do anything. That's the message that I want to make sure we got out.
Our guest today is a personal development coach, mentor, and highly respected real estate broker based in California. His story is one of triumph over adversity. At 20 years old, he found himself homeless and addicted to drugs. But with the help of a supportive community, he was able to turn his life around. Now, over 30 years later, he remains committed to two things: personal growth and helping others achieve success. Welcome to the show, my new friend we just met, Rick Warner.
Mike, thank you for having me on the show. I'm excited to be here. I have to say, every time I get introduced on a podcast, I feel like I'm coming onto a game show with that whole intro.
As you and I talked off camera about the new setups, and you're kind of out of your studio that you're normally in. Like, I would love to have some flashing lights and music and bringing you down, and the audience is high-fiving us.
Yeah.
We'll get there. We're working on it. But yeah, as I mentioned, guys, Rick and I just were connected through mutual friend of ours, Todd. So shout out to Todd Armstrong for bringing us
Todd's
together.
The best. Yep.
He's the podcast bounty hunter. So I love to give him a little shout out when I can. That's actually not his name. Don't go Google search that. I just jokingly call him that. But Rick, what you want to type in is flowcademy.com, FLOCADEMY.com. Don't worry about spelling that either. It's clickable in the show notes. And Rick is at the Rick Warner on Instagram. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. I've listened to some of your podcasts, and man, I'll tell you what, you have some great guests. I had a little bit of imposter syndrome coming in, like, wow, I hope I can live up to this show, because you really do. If people are not regular listeners, definitely check out some of your other episodes.
Thanks, Rick. I appreciate that. If you notice at the top of the show, we talked about adversity. It's something I cover quite a bit on the show. It's a big part of entrepreneurship, overcoming adversity. It's inevitable for entrepreneurs. So let's help our audience out with that. In the intro, we talked about your adversity. You were homeless, addicted to drugs at 20 years old, living out of a tool shed at one point. That's the first I heard of this. So I'd like you to kind of share the story, but also tell us how it shaped you into the man that you are today.
Yeah, it's funny, you think about adversity and you go, adversity bad. I want to avoid that. And I would almost say, look for the adversity, right? Lean into the adversity, wherever that is. In my case, it was a big smack across the face. My best efforts at life, despite being brought up by a great family and all the things, no abuse, no alcoholism, no drug addiction in my family. In fact, my dad was a minister. My mom was a school teacher. It was very leave it to beaver in my family. Somehow with all that, I ended up addicted to drugs and alcohol. And I moved into the tool shed behind the driving range where I was a golf instructor. And that was... Did
anybody there know, or was it just one of those things?
Yeah, no, I did it with permission. I actually, I would kind of joke like, it was a nice tool shed, it was, I built a loft up there. I had a sleeping bag. I had a bare mattress, a heater. But I didn't live in there for a couple days or a couple weeks. I lived in there for 10 months, if you can believe that. I used the porta potty. That was my bathroom. I got a membership. I was lucky enough to have a membership at the YMCA. I think it cost me like $30 a month or $25 a month. And that's where I took my showers every day. So I feel bad claiming homelessness, because there's people that are actually homeless. They don't have a tool shed. They don't have the YMCA. They don't have a porta potty.
You were more creative. You were entrepreneurial in your homelessness.
Within my homelessness, that's right. But to go back to your question, that was obviously a really difficult time for me. And I was like, this isn't fair. And why is this happening to me? And kind of playing that victim role. But at the very same time, there was some kind of weird comfort in where I was, I don't even know how to describe that, except for there was some kind of normalcy to it. Like, it became the only life that was normal to me. And it wasn't until this one particular night where all of a sudden I had, been up for a few days on, different chemicals I'd put in my body. And instead of doing what that normally did for me, because my brain, when I was doing drugs and alcohol, I just wanted to shut off my brain. Like I could not handle the way it would just hammer me and, the negative self-talk and all this stuff. And so that's why I was getting high all the time. And this one night, it didn't work. I put as many things in me as I could, and I could just see my life for really, really what it was. And I'm like, oh my God, what has happened to me? How did I end up living in a tool shed? By the way, I had also fathered a child a few days after turning 19. So here I am living in a tool shed, and I have a 1-year-old baby, a father that I don't even want to be a dad to, that I'm terrified of being a dad to, and really facing it. You know what I mean?
And you had visitation rights to your baby and everything. I mean, what was that like? Were you kind of showing up trying to put on a facade?
Yeah, totally.
I don't know what your situation was, it girlfriend or whatever, but
yeah, high school girlfriend.
Girlfriend. Did they know you were living in a tool shed?
She did. So if we back up a little bit, high school girlfriend, an amazing woman to this day. We're very close. She did everything she could to help me get to be responsible, and kind of, she was the first one to be like, hey, I think you might have a problem. And I was so terrified of my circumstances, and my only solution was, like I said, getting high, that she knew, we had a little apartment. I actually was helping pay for the apartment that she was still living in with the baby, and I was living in the tool shed.
Okay, cool.
And now I also want to say, just so I don't sound too virtuous in that context, I was also stealing money out of the cash register to pay for my drug habit. So, there was a lot going on there.
Well, dude, this podcast is a full transparency type podcast. I've gotten very real in here. I've shared things to my audience that I really haven't sat down with friends and talked about. And it's like, okay, I guess we're getting this one out of there today. But
right.
But it's all designed to help people out. And I'm not saying everybody listening maybe has hit that moment or that feeling of rock bottom. But I do understand, because I've had some rock bottom moments where there is kind of a comfort in the fact that, like, other people perceive you maybe in that moment as like this negative thing. How can this guy ever live with himself? And you were just like, I had to get to the next day, right? You were very much living just kind of survival mode, it sounds like, and
totally survival mode.
Doing what you needed to do. Obviously not proud of the taking money out of the cash register or anything like that, and not condoning it, but you had to do whatever to survive, and you got through those 10 months. And I know that you're highly connected. How do you say the name of this city in California? Petaluma? Petaluma, yeah. Is that where you were back then, or is that now your community?
I was just about 20 minutes south of here, in Marin County. And I actually, you highlighted a really good point, which I kind of tend to forget about in the story, is that if you knew me at that time, you would have no idea this is going on. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I'm living in the tool shed at night, but during the day, I'm giving golf lessons. You know what I mean?
It's
and
crazy.
I'm a dad, and I'm, like.
So how do you feel you kind of put these borders up in your brain so you were able to function like that? Because there's actually, I recently saw the movie Sound of Freedom, and I don't want to go on too much of a tangent. That's actually my latest episode I did, was on that movie and the topic of sex trafficking and the awareness behind it and how important it is. But like Tim Ballard is the guy that the movie's about, and he would go into these situations and he'd have to put on like a fake persona so he can get involved with these traffickers. So they basically would make a deal with them, and then they can come in and bust them, break through the doors and take these guys down, kind of thing. But he's like, it was so hard for him because he had to put these characters on and be believable to not get killed or threatened or whatever, where they figure him out. So he had to like be saying and doing some stuff that was just against his actual will, to get in a character. But he was explaining it on a podcast where he had to like put these barriers up, and it does mental damage. Do you feel like you maybe did some of that, where you had to kind of just live in the moment? No,
I would say this is kind of what I was alluding to. Like, the fact that I was living in the tool shed was, in my kind of imaginary brain, totally normal and fine. So there was no weirdness about it. That's what's one of the kind of hideous things about the addiction and alcohol world is you don't know. That's where denial comes from. Denial is
Right.
actual denial. It's not like you're convincing yourself. It's like it just is so that your life is normal. And so that's why that night, I had this, they call it a moment of clarity, where all of a sudden I could actually see my life for what it really was, because I was fooling myself, and who knows how much I was or wasn't fooling others. But, the next day I went and got some help in a 12-step program, and that, everything that happened after that, was a foundation on that platform of, letting being vulnerable and getting experience from other people who had the same problem I did and were no longer there. And then when I got a little bit of experience looking for the guy behind me that was, needing help that I needed, and to help him, and that chain link of, the person in front of me, the person behind me, and all of us working together to help each other. That was a big foundation for, in fact, it's part of the platform in my coaching company today, actually.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm thinking of you and the story of how it all comes together. And a lot of times whenever I receive coaching from somebody, and I think anybody should really evaluate it this way, is you want to be coached by someone, if it's in baseball, a great hitting coach, someone who is a great hitter. Maybe they played at least AAA ball, maybe some pro ball, right? I mean, come on. And you're paying them to do that. So you want the real life experience. And a lot of times there's coaches or mentors that they, might be a great person and they mean well, but then you're like, especially entrepreneurial, you're like, I'm looking for some coaching, how to take my business from 1 million to 10 million and get up. And they're just like, oh, there's all these coaches out there. And then you're like, okay, well, what kind of businesses did you run? Oh, a coaching business on how to teach you how to get better at your business. And you're like, that's not a business, dude.
Yeah.
So, why I bring that up is it's important that you have the story that connects to what your coaching is, and not that you're like, hey, I'm happy I had that backstory, but you're making the most of it.
Actually, I would say I totally am happy I have that backstory, to be honest, because it gives me the credibility that you're talking about. In other words, people can see me and go, oh, this guy was where he was, and now look where he is. He has the experience of going from here to there, and that's what I want. And I think you're hitting the nail on the head. It's the same thing with my coaching company is mostly focused on real estate. And so, I have a successful real estate business. I still practice a successful real estate business. So I'm not talking theoretical in that context. I'm saying these are the things that I did to get to where I'm at. And it's the same exact principle.
Exactly. Before we move on too, the reason I brought up the city, Petaluma, is because I know you're really big in giving back to that community. And that's the community that you were in that kind of helped you get out of this. You had that moment of clarity, but also there was a supporting cast of people around you. And can you talk about how important it is to have the right people connected to you?
What's that thing that they say? You are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so what happened for me in that moment was when I went into that program, and I basically got an entire new set of people I was hanging out with. Now, it was my job within that context to find the people within that group that I wanted kind of what they had. And then I kind of glommed onto them and hung out with them and listened and asked questions and was vulnerable with them and was honest and let them, kind of shape the direction of my life. And as I mentioned before, to me, that's the source of all things like going forward. So you mentioned coaching, mentorship. To me, I still to this day, that was 33 years ago, by the way, that's still the winning formula for me is, surround myself with winners, people who are where I want to be, and then look for the people that are an opportunity for me to be a leader to them, to be mentors to them, to be the person that's in front of them going, come on, this is great. I got this. Don't worry about that. I had a kid this morning that texted me. He's 30 something years old now, but I've been mentoring him for a long time. And he texted me, with that thing that we're doing, I'm really struggling with it. And I'm like, of course you're struggling with it. You're doing something for the first time. You're pushing, outside of your comfort zone to grow. And of course, when you do that, you're going to suck at it at first. I mean, that's just the way anything is. And what happens for most people is they go, oh, I suck at this. And then they don't want to do it anymore. And so part of my job as a mentor or a coach is to go, yeah, it's okay to suck at it. Let's just keep pushing through, And the reason I have that is because I have people tell me the same thing. And I still have people telling me the same thing because I come up against the same thing. This is too hard. It's this new idea. I'm on this working edge of pushing into where something is uncomfortable. And of course, my first reaction is, hey, it's uncomfortable. I don't want to go there. When in reality, where the discomfort is exactly where I should be going because that's where the growth opportunity is as well.
And something too, when you're looking to get somewhere that you're going, especially for the first time, you really need two things. You need a great tour guide and a map, right? Mm-hmm. And so the mentor is like your tour guide, and a roadmap is kind of the steps, like you said, to get out of clarity. You had a 12-step program, whatever it was. And then in coaching, if it's for business, you might have a 10-step program that your mentor puts in place for you. But there's a roadmap. I mean, you tell somebody to get to 123 Main Street in your local city, and you're like, how am I going to find that? Oh, it's by the blue house at the end of the road. Make a left, go up that hill, make a right. Ask Jim at the corner. He's always at his shop. Ask him. He knows. You're like, yeah, good luck getting there. But you and I have GPS on our phone. We say meet there at 7 o'clock. Boom, boom. We're both there. We're in the parking lot. We're shaking hands. How come we got there? Tour guide and navigation. So that leads me to my next question. Talk about the Navigator program, because I know that this is a big part of who you are and what you do.
Yeah, and I also just want to just shout out, I know you have a sponsor that has navigation in their word too, around bookkeeping, is that right?
Yeah, Navigator Bookkeeping is my actual bookkeeper.
And so navigation is the thing, and I appreciate you highlighting it in such an articulate way. I hadn't really considered it that way. But so my big dilemma, actually, do you mind if I just back up really quick?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so I had that place, 1989, where I was like, oh my God, I'm a drug addict, and I went and got help. In 2009, so 20 years later, I'm 40 years old. I'm successful. I have a wife. I have 3 kids that I had on purpose, and I have 4 kids total. I bought $1 million house back when that meant something, and 2006 is when I did all that. And I thought, all right, I've arrived, and it's great. Now I've got my career. And then September 2008 happened. And for those of you who were around then, I'm sure you were impacted. I mean, almost everybody was impacted by 2008. I'm sure you were too as well, Mike. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, the Lehman's crash you're talking about?
Yeah, and just the stock market and the housing crash and all the things. And being in the real estate business, it was a double dose of bad for me, right? So my house went down in value where it was basically, I had no equity left. But even worse than that, I was making no money, right? And so September 2009, I was broke. My lines of credit were either gone or spent. My credit line ran up the thing. I had a huge tax debt and I couldn't pay my mortgage. And it was my 40th birthday. And it was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I got 3 little kids. I got a stay-at-home wife. I got this $1 million house that I can't pay for. And I remember just sitting on the couch like every night watching the show and just feeling like there was an elephant sitting on my chest because I had so much pressure. And here I am again at this breaking point of like, man, I'm hitting another bottom in my life, even though I have all this success. I'm no longer a tool shed. I got this great house and all the things. And so once again, I went and sought out coaching and found people that had been where I was and they were no longer there. And what I really had to come to grips with was basically my success in real estate had everything to do with the market itself and very little to do with me and my own skills. And so I had to learn how to really be a great agent. And I really need to learn how to be a great entrepreneur and learn how to do lead generation and not just hope and wait for business to come to me.
Right.
And so within that context, I started being coached and it made all the difference in the world. And the one thing I found, and this is going to answer your Navigator question, the one thing that was really challenging for me was I had all these coaches that were giving me really great, do this, do that, the map stuff.
Right.
But there was no accountability. And I suck at being accountable to myself. I mean, I'm just no good at it. Like, I'm going to do this, and then I will get rid of whatever I thought I was going to do and just kind of do whatever I felt like doing or whatever my mood swung me. And so I was super ineffective. And so the Navigator program was born out of creating something that would help me stay accountable to what I had intended to do. So basically it's a form that we created where we put in there the things that we really intend to do on a regular basis. Like for me, I have on my daily Navigator, drink my greens. I've got one right in front of me. That's why I'm looking down at the thing here. Affirmations, meditations, journaling, spiritual reading or podcasts, exercise. So those are all personal development things. And then on the professional side, I have talked to a certain amount of people, meet face-to-face with a certain amount of people and so forth. And I have a whole list of best practices that I look at every morning, like a menu in a restaurant. And I check the box of all the things that I'm going to do that day.
Yeah.
And then I sign it like a contract and I send it out to this accountability group. And I say to those people, look at, these are the things I'm doing today. And that accountability is so much different than the accountability for just to myself, because now as I go through the day and I start going, oh man, I'm too tired, or man, I got a headache, or I just don't feel like doing that anymore, whatever it is, I can go, I'm not relying on myself anymore. I'm like, wait a minute, I told all those people I was going to do this. I can't not do this.
Yeah.
So I stay on task. I finish all the things. I have a little gratitude list, journal, take another picture of it, send it back out. And that's our daily navigator. And so that has made all the difference in my purposefulness and my effectiveness and how I'm, making sure that I'm getting stuff done that I want to get done.
Yeah, it's incredible. Daily non-negotiables, which actually was something if it didn't come up, I was going to ask you about. So you took care of that. It's so important. I mean, daily it's something, it's making a deal with yourself. But like you said, a lot of times we could be almost too nice to ourselves. And it's funny, that same person who is almost too generous or has too much gives us too much room in those moments is also the same person with the negative self-talk who's beating us up, who's our toughest critic. Hey, where the heck? You're my toughest critic right now. And 5 minutes ago, you're like, oh, you know what? You can get that task done tomorrow. What happened to you? Like, it's just so inconsistent. So it's great to have a real group of people that are going to hold you accountable. I'm in a mastermind group, a ton of great guys in the group, great Christian men that it's like you said, you want to be with people you're aspiring to be more like.
Yeah.
And those guys are like the mirror images of what I am aspiring to be. So it's really a great lesson. And this is a great conversation on entrepreneurship, some business. You did talk about real estate, and I know there's going to be people tuning into you for that. Real estate agent, real estate broker. I know they're two different positions, very similar. Can you talk about the similarities, differences, and why you chose to become a broker?
Out of respect for your audience, I know that most people on here are not really interested in real estate talk. So I'm happy to talk about the personal development side. It just happens to be I'm in real estate. The quickly to answer your question, the difference between agent and broker mainly is this: agent has to work for a broker. Broker can work for themselves and hire agents to work for them. So there's a responsibility factor there. Brokers are not any better at real estate than agents. That would be a myth.
That's important.
It's just taking another test to get a broker's license doesn't make you better at being real estate, just so you know. But I do happen to be a broker.
Cool. So you have the option when you're in real estate, because it's something that I do. It's on my bucket list. Like as I continue to grow and financially, continue to grow. I want to. You talk about diversifying your portfolio financially, but also, real estate's a great way to do that. But you got to get trained. You got to get licensed, know what you're doing, and then you could become a broker if it's something you're really into. And like you said, get a team. But I wasn't really sure on the dynamic of if the roles kind of do the same thing, but there's different levels of, maybe ownership, and maybe more the entrepreneurial person's going to be interested in broker, right? They want to go down that road.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes and no. I mean, being an agent is you're essentially your own business anyway. It's just that you have to hang your license under a broker.
Gotcha.
And that ultimately the broker is going to be responsible for any issues or whatever. So.
And the broker gets a cut, right, of the deal. If you work underneath ABC Broker, and I sell $1 million home, ABC Broker is going to get some of that because they're of course.
To almost 100%, that's their whole objective.
Right.
But every agent is an entrepreneur. There's no agent that isn't.
Right.
Because you have to go out and get your own business. You have to train yourself. You have to do all the things. So
I was an insurance agent for about 4 years. Not to bore you with all that, but it very much was the same thing. Entrepreneurial, like literally first day, they're like, here's the phone book, here's a bunch of doors that you can go knock on. And we got some cold leads of people who were with us and now they're not with us anymore. We want you to bring them back on. So it is very much, there's a roof over your head that maybe you're not paying for. You're actually paying through your paycheck different ways if you think about it. But, it is a great point. Now, you've been doing this for a while, right? How long have you been in real estate?
Yeah, so 20 years. It'll be it's going to be 20 years next year. So I guess 19 years.
So you've seen the whole boom of social media, how it really changed the game.
Yeah, social media, electronic signature. I at least got here when the internet was being used to find homes. Before that, they used to when. But anyway, I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole because I don't know if anybody's listening to this is interested in it. But yeah, 20 years in the business. But more importantly, I would say it's the ups and downs that everybody experiences just in life and career stuff that is, what's super important to me. What, my big observations, especially over the last 5 years around, just even what you were just talking about, your brain on one hand's like, yeah, take it easy today, and the very next thing, the same brain is telling you, what's wrong with you? Like when people ask me how I'm doing, I frequently will answer, I'm doing great as long as I ignore myself, and that's because, I have a brain that's very powerful, but if it's not, tuned in the right way. You mentioned being a Christian, so I have a spiritual practice as well. And like, I want to, for me, I want to be guided with, kind of a God-minded perspective. But if I'm just kind of willy-nilly on my own and not bringing God or meditation into my thinking, then I'm usually going to be directed by selfishness and dishonesty and resentment and fear. And it doesn't matter how long I've been connected to a spiritual way of living. That's my default, man, And so I really need to stay connected spiritually to kind of have the right thinking and take that powerful brain that we all have and direct it the right way towards, love and kindness and being helpful to others and being selfless and all that. But I would love to sit here and tell you that I'm just that way naturally, but I'm not, So.
You got to work at it. Yeah, it's definitely hard work that you got to put in. I think that's a beautiful thing. We're going to take a quick 2-minute timeout, but when we come back, we're going to get to know you a little bit more. And before we take the time out, I just want to say something to reflect on what you're talking about right there. Is a lot of times we have our superpower, right? For me, it's doing this. I feel like connecting with people, pulling their story out of them, having it help other people, I feel like is something that people at least have told me I'm good at. I enjoy doing it. It's a passion. If I didn't make $1 doing it, I would do it. Like you talked about golf. I've played a little bit of golf. I know I'm just about as good enough to play putt-putt, but I don't want to hold anybody up on the green, so I don't really go out and do that. This is my golf, right? Everybody has their own superpower. You have your thing you're talking about, like your brain is so crazy, like the entrepreneurial spirit is like a bull in a china shop, which is a good thing in a certain application, but then you need someone who's going to be more like, okay, we got to put that on paper. So when you're building out a team as an entrepreneur, you don't want 4 bulls in the china shop. You want one guy who's going to be that idea person, and then you have to like build it on. I'm not telling you this, like you don't know this, but it's just something for the audience to realize, like maybe they heard you say that and they're like, yeah, I got to like really hone it in sometimes. And it's like, hey, don't be like, if that's your superpower, just make sure, you can support it in other ways. I'm not the accounting person. That's why I hired Navigator Bookkeeping. Nate over there is amazing. He does that. We talk about it. I don't have to, freak out about it. That's not my forte. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The right people and the right seats of the bus.
Exactly. You summarized it in 3 seconds. It took me 3 minutes to spit it out. We're going to take a quick time out. We'll be right back with Rick.
Podcasting is a great way to engage with your audience and stay consistently relevant. The only problem is you don't have the time or desire to produce your own show. You simply want it done for you. And that's where Social Chameleon comes in. All you need to do is press record and upload the files. We'll handle the rest. From planning, production, post-production, distribution, and digital marketing, we have you covered. We realize that times are tough and funds are tight. And Social Chameleon believes in building supportive business relationships. By clicking on the link in this promo, we'll provide you 7 free podcasting tips to get started, as well as a free 30-minute online consultation. This is the perfect opportunity for entrepreneurs, keynote speakers, industry experts, influencers, and anybody who has a personal brand. With Social Chameleon, we help you build a brand that is out of this world. We're ready and waiting, so what are you waiting for? Click on the link to get started today. Hey guys, it's Mike. I'd like to give a proper shout out to Navigator Bookkeeping. Look, for a long time, I ran my business without really understanding the full financial picture. I used my gut and my bank account balance to make decisions, which led to some poor choices and constant stress over my business's finances. I knew something needed to change. At the beginning of 2021, I made a decision that helped pave a more clear path for my business. I started working with Navigator Bookkeeping. Since then, my bookkeeping has been handled for me. I now understand the full financial story of my business, making important financial decisions much easier now, and it helps me plan for where my business is going. I highly recommend giving Navigator Bookkeeping an opportunity to help your business. Check them out at navigatingyourbooks.com. Again, that's navigatingyourbooks.com. It's time to know the full financial story of your business.
All right, we're back in action with Rick. Remember, guys, you can connect with him on social media. I got the links clickable in the show notes, his website as well. So there's something we didn't talk about yet in your backstory, and this podcast is very much story-based. It's not really an infomercial, and you're doing an awesome job sharing your story so far. And there's something when I was doing a little homework, it caught my attention. I'm like, what is it? Why is this important? So you were sitting inside a train trestle while a 100-car train rolled by. You were 12 years old, and something about this experience impacted you on your perspective of life. I'm really excited to hear what that's all about.
That's funny. I wonder where you got that from. I don't think that's on my bio. Maybe it is. Yeah. So what's interesting is, 12 years old, grew up in the Central Valley, California, back in the good old days when, our parents were like, it's morning, get out of the house and don't come back until the streetlights come on, And so we had this little motorcycle gang of, kids on dirt bikes, and we would get on the railroad tracks or next to the railroad tracks, and we would ride and do jumps and whatever, kids get in trouble. Very Stand By Me-ish, you know what I mean, from that movie.
Yeah.
And the Kings River was a place that we would go, and we would jump in the river. We'd bring our lunches for the day. And so we're all in the Kings River, and all of a sudden it's probably, 10 of us, and somebody hears a freight train coming, and one kid says, let's get inside the train trestle while the train goes across.
Which is underneath, right? You guys are kind of underneath. If we could visualize what's going on here, the train would be above you.
So we were in the river, right? I don't know if the camera.
Okay,
we were in the river right down here, and we ran up and got in onto the railroad tracks and went inside the train trestle, head high with the train, right?
So when the train's coming by, how is it not hitting you? Are you like kind of tucked underneath
exactly,
it?
But we're 12 years old. So, what happened? One kid says it, no other kid wants to be the chicken, right? So next thing you know, we're all running up inside this train trestle, and we all had one girder to stand inside. We actually were able to sit down a little bit, but those things are not made for pedestrians at all. Yeah. They're made for just the width of the train. And so all of a sudden, here comes this train. Usually it was an Amtrak. We didn't know what kind of train it was. All we heard was the horn. An Amtrak is maybe 3 or 4 cars, maybe 5 cars long. This was a full freight train of 100 cars or whatever.
Can you imagine being the engineer on that thing and the conductor watching this?
Yeah, I don't even know if he could see us because we were like tucked inside. But yeah, I've never thought about that. Anyway, so here we are. We're all tucked inside of this thing, and this train is going through, and the thing is shaking. And it feels like that the train is 6 inches away from your nose. I'm sure it was a foot or 2 feet, whatever. But I'm assuming all my buddies, I'm screaming like I'm about to die. I may really believe I have made a horrible decision here, and I'm going to die, and it takes forever for 100 trains to go by, and then it goes by, and it's silent. And just like a tornado having come and gone, it's just gone. And you realize you're alive. And then we jumped. We got out of there, and we're all, I think, tears.
Yeah.
But I wasn't crying, but it was that realization of like, hey, you've got to make your own decisions. Like, you cannot be running around just doing what everybody else does, And, but what's funny is here, I learned that lesson at 12. And then, I still have to fight that same, there's that thing that we want to be part of something.
Yeah.
And that's why I was going back to, you are the sum of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. If you're hanging out with the people that are doing those kind of things, then it's good to be part of whatever their crazy idea is, right? And on the other hand, if the 5 people that you spend the most time with aren't going where you want to go, that's not going to stop you from doing the things that they're doing and getting whatever it is that they've got. There's this saying in 12-step programs, go where we go, do what we get, and you'll get what we got. And that works in reverse too. So,
yeah, really good, man. It's a human element. It's human nature to connect with other human beings. It's one of the beautiful things about us, but it also can be damaging when, again, like you said, you're around the wrong people. So that's a crazy story. So one thing I want to hit on is I've heard it a bunch. I credit Ed Milet. I'm not sure if he created this or if it's something he heard, I think possibly from Tony Robbins, but it's the idea of everything happens for you, not to you. You change the gear a little bit in your brain.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
So these moments, these scary moments in life, the tool shed thing, supporting a family and all that crazy stuff. And these things happen for you, right? And
Totally.
I know that you believe in that. It's kind of the mentality that you've talked about on other shows. And so if somebody's hearing that for the first time and they're going through some stuff right now, can you let them know how they can actually empower themselves right now? Yeah.
Yeah. So what I would call that is, I kind of alluded to it a minute ago. It's a working edge in our life. And so a working edge can be as subtle as every time I see that person, they drive me crazy, to, oh my God, I'm totally broke and I don't know what to do. And within the context of any of those life experiences where they create this emotional pain, and it's an emotional pain enough that you go, I'm going to retract, I'm going to move backwards, which makes sense intellectually, right? You're like, oh, that's going to feel bad, so then I'm not going to go there. And so it's a shift in your brain to go, wait, that's going to feel uncomfortable, but beyond that discomfort is a bigger life. I'm going to lean into that discomfort. I'm going to find out what there is to know about why that's uncomfortable for me. Like, was his name Michael Christopher?
Michael, yeah.
Christopher Michael. Okay, I got his names back.
Yeah.
But I mean, he does such a great job of talking about that mindset and all that. And, that really is, it's a shift in how you are. So for example, you have a difficult circumstance within a relationship. Every time this happens, then this happens, right? Or it seems that way. Being curious about what it is that is triggering you to feel that way when that happens is way more important than where most of us get, which is, don't say that it upsets me and then avoid the situation. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. You have to live in those deeper, darker, painful moments to be able to get any. If you need to go in there to clean it up, you got to at least be there temporarily.
Yeah, feel the feelings. Yeah,
and
exactly.
And then you can start to get out of there. Yeah.
Yeah. It's there's that other quote, in the caves, something like, in the darkest caves is the treasure we seek, or whatever it is. It's that same idea. Like, don't be afraid of the things that you're afraid of. Right.
Yeah, it's like Indiana Jones, which is the latest movie just came out recently. He's got to go into these darkest places, the scariest thing, and deal with his fears of the snakes.
It's a great metaphor for life. Yeah, exactly. and I would say the great news too is that it's the darkest, scariest cave of your life where the biggest relief is. I mean, it is the good news is the bad news, right? But that's absolutely the case. And I just wanted to throw one other thing out there within the context of facing that what seems like insurmountable thing. I about 4 years ago, I started dating a girl who said, hey, do you want to go for a run? And I was not a runner. I was never anything, distance, endurance, whatever. I was an athlete, but only because I'd like to do things, tennis and so forth. So she says, you want to go for a run? And of course, in my head, I'm like, no, I do not want to go for a run.
Let me check my schedule. No, I still don't want to.
But then my words came out like, yeah, that sounds good. So because she's cute and whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm like, so I go for this run, and about halfway through, I'm like, wow, this is freaking horrible. Like, I can barely breathe. My chest is killing me. Like 3/4 of a mile in, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to date her anymore. Like, this is not going to be my life, you know?
Yes.
And at the end of it, I'm just like, I'm completely done. I think I'm about to die. That was 1 mile.
You were a
she goes, "How
smoker
was
too,
that?"
weren't you? A smoker for like 30 years or
Yeah,
something crazy?
thank you. Yeah, exactly. I had been a smoker for 30 years. I quit several years before that, like 5 years before. But yeah, I had been a smoker and all the things. And so here at 1 mile, she goes, "How was that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's good." You know, totally lied, right? And she says, "Awesome, because we're doing a 5K on the 4th of July." This was like 5 days later. I'm like, "A 5K? What is that, like 100 miles, you know?"
Yes.
And it's only 3.1 miles. But anyway, so we did that, and I started to get into running. And so a 5K led to a 10K, and a 10K led to a half marathon. And then a half marathon led to a 20-mile run from Petaluma to Dillon Beach. And then from there, I started training for a marathon, and then I ran the Chicago Marathon. Last year I ran the New York Marathon, and then this week on Sunday I'm going to run the San Francisco Marathon. So my point to that whole story, because I know we're short on time, is that there's no way when she said, "Do you want to go for a run?" did I even think, or did I want to, or I entertain the idea of running 26.2 miles, right?
Yeah.
But by doing a little bit at a time, and by just building up whatever this new thing was, in this case, it happens to be this metaphor of running, that all of a sudden on Sunday, I'm going to run 26.2 miles, and I'm not even worried about whether I'm going to do it or not. I'm completely ready and trained to do it. But had you said that day when she said, "Hey, you want to go run for a run?" Of course, I could have never, ever run 26.2 miles. And so all of the things that we do are that kind of metaphor. Like anything that you want to do is possible, anything. And if you just take the time to do all the things that you said, have the right people in your life, have the right direction, have the navigator, and do the little things and go and lean into those working edges. And believe me, I had plenty of hurdles during that time that I had to work through, including literally running through some pain and some other stuff, and go, "No, you know what?" And my mantra during that was, "My body is willing, it's my mind that's weak. My body is willing, it's my mind that's weak." And just kept going. And anybody can do anything. That's the message I want to make sure we got out.
Damn, Rick Warner, mic drop moment right there at the end, exclamation point. Super grateful for you today. Brother, I am just happy to have you in my network, and thank you for being real on the show and sharing your heart and going deep into some of those things that maybe, we're not the most proud of in our past, but they're a big part of our past. They're what make us who we are today. And then doing the things that are not easy, or maybe we have no little interest in. We get our feet wet, we go run for that 1 mile, and later we're running 5Ks and doing it for charitable causes and all the other cool things I know you're doing behind it. Thank you for your time. Guys, go back and listen to that last 5 minutes again. If that doesn't get you freaking amped up, I'm like ready to run through a brick wall for the rest of my day. Just any adversity, like, okay, what good can we learn from it? Where are we going now? That's not going to hold me up any longer. We're moving forward. What a powerful episode. At the Rick Warner or flowacademy.com. Rick, thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you.
Thank you for hanging with us all the way until the end. If you haven't done it already, you can click right over here to subscribe to my channel. Make sure you turn on your notifications so you're notified of all of the updates. If you guys like shorter clips, I have mic drop moments right here. That's when my guest gives an amazing insight, and we capture that right here. Mic drop moments, and down here are the full-length episodes. All my previous episodes are right there.